spin that way. Welcome to the PNW. We are in Black Rock, Oregon, filming for the video Get Phat that the guys at PNW Components filmed and edited for me. If you haven't seen that, click in the top right corner to check it out. This video is going to give some insight on some of the lines and show some of the outtakes. Since Black Rock is entirely downhill trails, the day started off with a nice long fire road climb to the top. Quite the view up here.
Oh yeah.
Nap time or what? So how far is the goal on the first shot? Like start 180, nose wheelie down to the rock, and that'll be cut there. So just try to get to the rock good.
Yep.
This first shot might have been the hardest to get how I wanted it. It was so tight with the tree, and getting the timing down for the rocks was tough. It was going to be cut into separate shots, but I needed to get it clean all the way through before we moved on. I actually never got this one quite how I wanted to. I was hoping to float the front tire from the tree to the stump and bounce back onto the trail without any pedal kick, but I needed just a little bit to get that gap back to the trail. Trying to bounce off of this one, rear tire there, and then like spin that way and continue that way. Maybe land on this rock, maybe just land where I land.
Okay.
But kind of like a
Lip.
kick off, land rear, front up,
Okay.
spin.
Back, and then keep going that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
and no idea if it'll work, but
Alright.
it's worth a feel. For a place called Black Rock, there were actually not a lot of rocks to ride on. This spot right at the top was one of the few rock gardens we found. I'm gonna follow TJ off of it, make sure I like it. I overjumped it.
I don't know if he's coming or not. What the heck is with this? It's got a different angle view. Uh-oh.
The idea here was to hit the jump normal, then turn around and climb back up, going up the stump, but I just couldn't get enough speed. It looks relatively flat on the video, but it was an uphill battle all the way. I pedaled as hard as I could up to the landing, then tried to pump that and get some speed for the stump, but it just wasn't enough. Watching it back now, it looks like I may have had enough time to get a pedal in after the roller and right before the stump, and that might have been the trick to get it up to the top. This nose bonk spin off of the stump into the landing was actually pretty scary to commit to. It's hard to get the front end down when spinning off of it. Since the landing was pretty steep and loose, I was worried about landing too front end high and washing out.
Oh.
I would have liked to have been able to get a little more rotation out of this one, but I had to take it and move on.
Holy, there's a big drop.
How big? Be cool, the manual to that knuckle and then hit the drop that way.
And we could do this in 2 shots. I could get one here wide, kind of around the corner with you.
Yeah,
And then grab one
above the drop.
down below, pointing back up with the long guy, and just get you popping off of it.
Yeah. This one ended up taking a few more tries than I wanted it to. It may look pretty smooth, but the wood was actually a little bit choppy, making it hard to balance, and turning to the right in a manual is much harder for me than turning to the left, so it was tricky, but the shot turned out cool. I followed TJ here into the big wooden step up, and this ended up being one of my favorite sections to hit. It was just a fun, fast line with a big drop into a long side-up jump before the wooden step up, and then a nice little trail back down to the road. I would have liked to continue and hit the next drop, but that one was broken, so we had to settle with what was there. It worked!
That was crazy.
Actually, oh,
You dropped it? Yeah.
I actually braked up to it and still went further than I expected. I would have liked to tweak the toboggan a bit better here, but I had never done one at that speed, and I was a bit worried about the front end getting pulled to the side on me. With only a few tries, I didn't want to take that chance on a wood landing. So we just finished getting a shot here. I didn't get any pre-shots, but the line was jump up that, which is actually pretty tall, and then transfer over to that one, backwards nose wheelie down as far as possible, which was tough in itself. But if you look at the run, that's actually what made it the hardest. Got all these holes out of this loose corner, pothole, weird rollers into it, and an uphill loose turn. So pretty much no speed until here, turn, charge all the way up to it. So doing that a bunch of times in a row was quite tough, but the shot turned out pretty sweet. There's a nice ladder drop to roll down here into the dirt. I'm thinking nose wheelie across, pop to a manual, pop and clear. That would land in the dirt. Looks kind of flat, but it's actually a few feet off the ground over here. I've done this on flat drops, but this is actually slightly downhill, so it's going to be tough to find the balance point on the manual to pop out. What was I saying about finding the balance point? Yeah, that could have been really bad. This just dropped into a tabletop that I thought would be a good spot for a whip. I don't think I can whip very well, but it's fun to try to get it sideways. This ended up being the last shot of the video, and I used the dropper post 3 times. Can you spot each time it was used? Photo shoot time. PNW hooked me up with some loam grips, which were prototype at the time, but they're available now, and they are awesome. Alright, it's day 2 out here at Black Rock. It rained a bunch, so gonna do a quick warm up with a log slide. That was pretty fun. Should be ready for the big drop now. Oh yeah, that's a drop. A huge mega landing. At least it's nice and steep, but it's up there. Never hit something like this on this bike, or possibly on any bike, I don't know. Definitely not going from there, because I don't want to go from there. But right here, maybe not so bad. Don't go right. This was a fun little hip, but I wanted to do more than a little whip, so I started to take my foot off to try to add some style to it. It took a few tries for it to look and feel decent, since I never really practiced these. Yeah! Nailed it. The rest of this trail was really fun. Lots of jumps, berms, and great spots for fast nose wheelie turns. We're looking for some fast stuff now, so this pretty straight line here might try to make a little more exciting. Pop off these roots, berm. I never got to do a full run top to bottom here, but it sure seems like the climbing would be worth it, because these trails are fun. A drop. I like the drop. I don't know about that jump.
Holy heck.
You want to roll it?
No.
We were almost to the bottom at this point and ran across this slightly technical root section. It wasn't much, but given how wet and slick the roots were, it was actually pretty tricky. I think this might have been the only shot we got that didn't make the cut, but the pictures are pretty cool. That's That's a wrap. Overall, I was really happy with how the edit turned out. It is definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it yet. This terrain was definitely not my style, as I haven't ridden anything quite like it, but it was a fun challenge to try to adapt to it and come up with lines that would work. I want to thank everyone at PNW Components for making this video happen, and Fatback Bikes for providing a fat bike that can handle trails like these.